All right. Welcome in, everyone. It's another week, another edition of BTB Analytics 3% Edge. It is your boys, Kevin, Seth, and Steve, here with you again. God, it's I'm a little on I'm a little like on the verge of getting all messed up. Like we got to half our household, or the main culprit is sick, if you know what I mean. My child is sick, so I'm about to be fighting through some stuff, but we're going to truckle on. No one's going to notice it. We got a lot of good matchups, as always, to break down data, predictions, marquee matchups, best bets. You know the drill. Let's not waste any time. Let's go.
Give a damn about a hater when I feel like it. Not today, not today, not today, not tomorrow. Get out my way, please. I'm trying to get paid. Not today.
Another show where we're going to be scoreboard watching, probably keeping track as the show progresses here. We got some action going on. We got some where are we at?
7-3
Western Michigan. All right, is already a model play that we're going to be sweating out in real time here. So glad to be back with you guys. It's another jam-packed weekend, not only for matchups, but talk about volume. We'll get into that a little bit later too. But let's just get right into some of these matchups that we're talking about, going to be previewing here. Let's jump right into Saturday. We don't have any no more Friday night lights this week again. I think that's a couple weeks in a row. But ACC matchup, an interesting one. Clemson going up against Pitt here. Pitt is now the loser of two in a row after their really hot start. And I want to know, I kind of want to feel this out in real time, or get your guys' opinion on what the game script is here for Pitt to cover, because we make the number 12, the market's at 10, so we don't show any value on either side of this one at the moment. But is the game script basically Pitt needs to run the ball against the, in my opinion, somewhat suspect Clemson rush defense? Or what has to happen here for Pitt to stay alive in this? Because either team loses this, and they're definitely out of the ACC championship picture, right, Seth?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, Miami losing shakes things up a bit, but yeah, I agree, and I agree with the method here for Pitt. In our database, Clemson is the 100th worst rushing defense. So I mean, that is the thing to attack. The thing I thought that was interesting, if you look at the run rate over expected for Clemson's defense, it's -20%, meaning they are really used to blowing teams out and teams kind of having to throw and not running the ball. And so is this a big blemish that Clemson has that basically, maybe other than Louisville, no one's been able to kind of exploit, and Pitt is in the pole position to try to exploit it?
Yeah, Steve, to that end too, I think Pittsburgh, from what I have jotted down here, also, like, if that is the game script, like they have a -12% run rate over expected. So they're not necessarily prone or apt to run the ball or attack the weakness of this defense. But when Louisville and Clemson played, Louisville like gashed them big time. I mean, they generated almost 8 yards of play, 0.3 EPA per play when rushing, which was good for 95th percentile that week. So this defense can be very susceptible to on the ground game. So Steve, is that what has to happen here?
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't matter what's going to happen. Pitt's being blown out in this game. This is going to be my off the numbers pick. I mean, it's just bad timing, quite frankly.
Yeah,
this is a statement game for Clemson. It's the last ACC game for Clemson this year, right?
Yeah.
And to Steph's point, they mentioned they already lost to Louisville. So when you look at the ACC tiebreaker rules, Clemson actually needs Miami to lose again, even though they both have one loss in the conference, or they need SMU to lose twice, right? Because the tiebreaker in the ACC is the win percentage among common opponents, and Miami and SMU both beat Louisville. So Clemson being at number 17 in terms of their ranking, not only are they looking at the outside chance of getting to the ACC championship game, they're looking at an outside chance to make the CFP in general. So from here on out, it's blowout season. And I think there's going to be absolutely no mercy whatsoever. Now on Pitt's side, like you mentioned, Kev, they're on a 2-game losing streak against SMU and Virginia. And once again, Eli Hosting, their quarterback, is injured. So what are they going to do here, right? They put in Nate Yarnell again. We've seen him on and off this season. But the problem is he's looked like absolute dog shit for the most part. And it's not, I want to be fair, right? I mean, he's not really getting a lot of reps, and Pat Narduzzi in his press conference talked about that. And you expect that to kind of get better as the time goes on. I just don't know how much better it's going to get. So even if Hosting plays, he's not 100% healthy. He's been struggling on this 2-game losing streak to begin with. All of this makes me to believe that this is going to be kind of a blowout brewing. So, yeah, I think they're going to have to try to exploit the run because of the suspect quarterback play. But if they can't do that, and the Clemson team who's looking for vengeance, let's not forget, this is the same Pitt team that upset Clemson and ended their championship hopes a couple of years ago when they were both ranked opponents. I don't know. All this just says bad blood game, Clemson in a shootout, or Clemson in a blowout.
I'm having deja vu. Okay, it's like Groundhog's Day. I recall you sitting in that seat last week. And when we talked about Miami and Georgia Tech, Miami with the blowout.
Yep.
Here we are again.
Yep. Okay, listen, it's like going for 2. Stats say eventually you're going to get it. So
can I lay on the deja vu a little bit more?
Yeah.
The raw model number makes this Clemson -17, which is, I think, almost exactly what it was for Miami. I think it may have been -18 last week, but yeah. So I mean,
this is a redemption pick for me then.
Yeah. No, look.
I'm rooting for the chaos though, frankly, because of our SMU position. So
right,
it's fair.
Yeah. So sorry, Seth. Didn't mean if you had a
no. I don't have anything other than just that.
Okay.
All the true line, and at this point is 17 via our model. So there is some wiggle room there on the 10. I mean, you could see even when we regress to the market, we make it 12. Not a whole lot of value from like a marketing, like using the model in the way we use it. But yeah, I mean, I guess if you're going to lean on that raw number, there's definitely value.
Yep. Yeah. So pretty clear stay away to that end, from our perspective, which I'm kind of glad about, because I was going through this. I was like, I could see this not being a blowout on either side, but I could see some fluky, funky stuff going on with this one, just kind of based on what the numbers say. So we'll see. We'll see if Steve goes keeps batting over.
Did either of you guys watch the Louisville Clemson game? I didn't get to actually see that game. Like, how did Louisville win that game? Was it on the ground?
I didn't catch that one live.
I only caught bits and pieces of it. Not enough to have a super informed opinion. But looking at the advanced box score stuff, it was they generated all the efficiency on the ground. Yeah,
I mean, I'm concerned for Clemson here because of that run rate over expected on defense. So -20%, meaning they're just not used to teams running on them because they've gotten out to these big leads. So they come out swinging. Pitt does, like running the ball just down after down after down, which again, to your point, Gavin, it's not something they want to do or like are used to doing, but
it's not their style, frankly.
That might be the only way to beat them.
Yeah. But looking back on that, Louisville had, if I remember correctly, I'll pull up the box score here, but Louisville got out, they jumped out to a lead. It was kind of like that Georgia-Texas game where, Louisville essentially beat them down in the first half, and then, kind of second half went through. And it looks like they were up 17-7 in the first half. And then it was a 16-14 split. So they still outscored them in the second half, but looks like they kind of got that under control. But yeah, I'm with you, Seth. It's definitely a point of concern, 100%.
Yeah, 100th against the run.
Sheesh. Yeah. All right, we'll see how that one shakes out. Let's move on down the line, though. Big 12 matchup, and this one looked like it was going to be good on paper just a few weeks ago, but now we'll see what happens. Utah going up against number 18 Colorado. Colorado with the Big 12 championship on the mind, really, at this point. I don't know, when I was kind of, breaking down this one, we show obviously an asinine amount of value on this one. It's not a play because of the quarterback situation. It just is what it is. Like, Cam Rising went down. The other guy behind him went down. Like, I don't even know who they're starting at this point. But what is, Steve, what a hope is there for Utah's offense? Like, it feels like this has to be a game where fluke shit, high variance stuff has to happen in order for Utah to cover, let alone pull up an upset.
I would have thought that maybe a couple of weeks ago, when Utah came off that loss to Houston and things were looking absolutely horrible for this team. And don't get me wrong, they're not looking better, not much better at least. You have these two teams who are going in the opposite direction, right? I mean, Colorado's second in the Big 12, Utah's second to last in the Big 12, and who saw that coming? But to your point, in that game against BYU, so to answer your question, Brandon Rose is the third string quarterback now that Isaac Wilson got hurt, and there's some question of when he's going to be back or not. But that offense did seem to click a little bit more with Rose under center. Now, I don't know if that's going to be enough per se, but to be fair, Utah was one questionable defensive holding penalty away from upsetting BYU this past weekend. So I think there's definitely something there. The game script is going to be no new surprises. It's can Utah's defense hold, and then can Utah's offense do just enough to win in a sort of, kind of rock fight, quite frankly. And it's going to be strength on strength, right? Colorado's offense versus Utah's defense. I think there's a pathway to that. I don't know how likely that is because Colorado's defense seems to have been improving week on week from, the essentially the Ole defense we've been known to see Colorado play. So I don't think there's much of a chance here. Colorado has won 6 of their last 7. And I know we don't necessarily cover trends here, but they've covered all 7 on top of that. So this team looks to be focused. They look to be clicking. I'm not betting against Colorado on this one, but I think there's a game plan there at least.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said. I mean, just to put some numbers on that, Utah offensively, 112th passing, 105th rushing. I mean, they are not a good offensive team, but their strength defensively, 30th against the pass, 19th against the rush. I guess I am dumb enough to take this. I did trust the model here. I went ahead and bet it for a couple of reasons.
What number did you get?
I bet it today. So
okay, because I was going to make a comment too. Technically, at Circa, this opened at 9 and kind of immediately got bought up, which moved towards Colorado at 11 now.
Yeah, I think I got an 11 or 11 and a half. I'm trying to see.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that you buying at the top, so to speak, which
well, and
not,
it's
not a bad number.
2 reasons. How much worse can these offensive numbers get? I don't think that much worse. So I mean, I'm kind of buying what I know I'm buying. I'm buying a bad offense with a really good defense. And we talked about this last week. Now Tech did it for like 1 quarter. They chopped off the basically one-headed monster of Colorado, which is throwing the ball. I have a lot more faith that Utah can do it. So basically that reason right there. And then last week, our model liked Utah last week. And we didn't bet it because of this injury. So I'm trying to learn the kind of lesson, which is you're really buying their defense. And so, sure, can Colorado go out and cover this? Yes. Can they win? Of course. But I think you got to just, have faith that the defense can hold here. And I think that's where the quote unquote value is coming from. So I'm just going to go ahead and trust the process. High variance, no doubt about it. This one's gross.
It probably doesn't make you feel very good, to be honest.
No, for sure. I mean, it's basically strength on strength. So it's who's going to win. It's either Colorado's offense is going to they're going to win by 21, or Utah could lose by 3 or something like that.
And to that point, like I was looking back to like at the defenses that Colorado has played to date, and really the only one that has cracked the top 50 was Nebraska at 48th in EPA per dropback allowed. Specifically passing defense here.
Yeah.
Utah is number 14th in the country. 6th in passing success rate, 6th in havoc rate when per dropback as well. So there are maybe some signals there to suggest that Colorado might actually have a hard time moving the ball through the air.
Defense. I mean, Utah 7th best echo rate over expected in our database, and then 15th in defensive points per echo. So this team is stingy. I mean, they don't give up a lot of points, and they don't really let teams drive. So we saw what they were able to do against a good BYU team. I would argue, is BYU better than Colorado as a team? I kind of would make that argument.
Perhaps, yes.
I will say though, the one thing I would caution about, and I agree with you. If you're buying this bet, you said it perfectly, Seth. You're buying Utah's defense against Colorado's offense and making them one-dimensional in the run game. However, as much as we saw Brandon Rose kind of improve that offense last week, they did lose Brent Keefe, who's their star tight end, and quite frankly, their leading offensive, catch getter, if you will. So TBD on what that offense looks like. But to your point, can it get much worse? I think we've seen rock bottom for Utah.
Yeah. Well, we see Kent State can offer, so hopefully they're not that bad. But Jesus, I have to say, next year I'll save this take for when we get to the landscape.
Okay, fair enough. All right, we're 2 games down. Let's move on to the next one. But before we do, guys, appreciate you being here with us. Let us know in the comments if what you guys think of these matchups. If there's something you think the model's missing, that we're missing, want to hear you guys' thoughts. Don't forget to like the video as well. Please also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really keeps us humming along here and gives us an ego boost, and we always love that. So. Let's move on, though. How about an SEC matchup? Okay, number 24 Mizzou and number 23 South Carolina. We are on the models on this one. We are on Mizzou plus 13.5 in this one, and we make the number 11. So again, I think most of the market is at a 13.5 now. We made it 11 when it was 12.5. Let's see what it is.
I ran these today, so actually it's the opposite. We got it at 13.5.
Yeah,
and the market's bought it back down.
Yeah. 12.5 is pretty much across the market now. Yeah.
So point of value for all the members, which is always good to see. But yeah, early buying on Mizzou.
Yep. So this one, I feel like, I guess, let me know if you agree with this one, Seth, but the defenses in this one, I didn't realize, or maybe I just didn't appreciate, like how solid really kind of both of them are on both ends. So South Carolina is number 7 overall based on the adjusted EPA per play allowed, and specifically number 4 passing defense. And Mizzou is, like, offensively speaking, dare I say mid? Like, is that too harsh? I mean, I have 85th overall ranked offense.
I was to say it might not be harsh enough. I have 80th and 74th against the pass. So 80th rush offense. I mean, that's a little worse than mid.
Yeah. So there is one last point. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe there is a potential injury question mark with Brady Cook, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think he has an ankle injury, and in limited sample size, like, I think there was a pretty noticeable drop between him and I believe it's Drew Pine, who's the backup. So all those things aside, Seth, or maybe Steve, let me get you, because you look like you're about to slap me on the hand for that one.
Yeah, no. I was going to say, I think we've seen Drew Pine a couple of times this year, and he's a transfer from Notre Dame. He did play in that Oklahoma game, and he didn't look terrible. I mean, 14 for 27, 143 yards, 3 tutties, no picks. I mean, it wasn't world burner, but it was serviceable. But yeah, I mean, we have this Brady Cook injury, and like every other college coach, we've been completely mum in terms of what's actually going to happen here. But I will say, and this is, I'm glad I get to go first here, because I'm kind of stuck to kind of talking about the ledge here. This one scares the shit out of me. This one is the one I am shaking in my boots about, even though we do so value here. And to this point, we talked about this all year long with Mizzou and their opportunity to get to a playoff game, sneak into the CFP because of their strength of schedule, especially being the SEC. And when you look at it, and I couldn't find, I didn't have our listed line by line, but looking at PFF power ratings, right? Of all Mizzou's wins, they have not beaten anybody within a top 50 power rating. The 2 teams they have played that are within the top 20 have been Alabama, who they lost by 31, and Texas A&M, Alabama they lost by 34, A&M they lost by 31, and South Carolina sits at number 14. And like you mentioned, Kev, that defense is extremely stingy, and so I'm concerned here. I do get a little bit of, I'm not quite as nervous about the backup quarterback play, because Drew Pine he's seasoned, right? We've seen him play before, but for me, it's the defensive side, right? You look at the defense that Mizzou, and then they have a good one. If we can pull up the landscape real quick, you can see we have the weighted EPA for offense and defense. Where the further to the right you are, the better you are on offense. Closer to the top you are, better you are on defense. And you can see South Carolina in that top left-hand corner, or excuse me, Missouri in that top left-hand corner next to Oklahoma. Pretty good defense, but they've also been exploited by the Bamas, by the A&Ms, who do have a better efficient offense, or more efficient offense in South Carolina. I'll give you that. But that's just the one part that scares me. We talked about Mizzou being overhyped a couple of years ago and them overperforming. This is the one where I'm like, oh, is this going to be the one where they kind of get exposed? So, Seth, talk me off this cliff, man.
I don't know if I can talk you off the cliff. I think the biggest thing that the data show, and it is exactly what you were kind of highlighting, Kevin, which is this is a defensive matchup, which wasn't on my bingo card, especially for Mizzou, This team is like almost the opposite of what everyone thought they were going to be, which is really efficient offensively, pretty bad defensively because they lost their defensive coordinator and a bunch of guys to the league. No, it's the opposite. This is a good defense and then maybe mediocre to poor offense. But I think to me, that's the game. If we look at weighted EPA, Missouri is 12th overall weighted EPA defense. South Carolina 15th. So these are just two really good defenses going up against each other. So to me, I think that's where you're getting the value. You're just getting, you're just getting so many points, 13.5 in an SEC matchup. I agree. This doesn't feel all that amazing, but I'm trying to like look at South Carolina's record. I mean, Alabama was a good loss. They definitely could have won that game. They definitely stuck it to Oklahoma, but Mizzou with their backup, they don't want to say stick it to them, but they survived that game. The market was buying Oklahoma all week. So that within itself is a bit of a data point, right? That this team can kind of perform, even with not quote unquote all their guys. So it's hard for me to talk you off the ledge. Yeah. This is one, trust the process.
Can I put a pipe bomb in your pine box? Go the opposite route.
You've never heard that.
What? Overkill. You never heard that?
I'm not
Overkill,
sure that I can
put a what in my way?
Yeah, what?
A pipe bomb in your pine box. You never heard that? Okay. It's because it's overkill. You're already dead and you're putting a bomb in there. Okay. Anyway, so if Brady Cook is sidelined, and we're talking about the in my opinion, the drop off between him and Pine. Shout out Game on Paper too for having the kind of side by side between these two guys. But like again, small sample size. Drew Pine only has 80 dropbacks, but excuse me. Let's high level stats. Yards per dropback 6.3 for Brady Cook, 4.2 for Pine. EPA per dropback. Cook's in the positives, 0.06. Drew Pine drops all the way to negative 0.29. Overall success rate, 41% to Cook, down to 33% for Pine. I mean, across the board, it is a pretty significant, in my opinion, drop off. So if he is if they trot him out there, then I would not be surprised. Because the injury news or the injury requirements in college, like they're on them basically. So we're probably not going to know until Saturday, but. If and when that news comes out, I would not be surprised to see this shoot through the 14. In my humble opinion.
Wait, who's the backup for Utah?
Isaac Wilson is second string, and Brandon Rose is third string. Brandon Rose was who played last week.
Brandon Rose out for the season.
This
just got broke. Eric, can you take a look at that? Can you Google that for me?
He did get hurt in that game. He did get hurt.
Well, he's out for the season.
Yeah.
All right.
So the question is Isaac Wilson because he was questionable. Sorry.
So their second string was hurt.
Let's see what the market does.
Yeah. So their second string was hurt. Then their third string played last week. There was questions if the second string could come back and play at all. But so now their third string's out. Yes, it's either they have no quarterbacks in their top three or they have the second string this week.
Yeah.
That's the question right now.
I got to get out of this as soon as humanly possible. How did
confirmed?
Abort.
Eric says confirmed. Yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Can I pull it out before FanDuel can move?
Market has not appeared to have reacted.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm racing. All right.
While Seth races to get some value off the board here, most positive EV thing he'll probably do all night.
I can get a full cash out.
Okay, let's go.
You gotta take that.
All right.
Oh, that's
saved you a bullet.
Hopefully I just burn my account.
All right, we'll see. We'll see how this one shakes out though. So, all right, we got a couple more good matchups to break down. Next, let's go to another Big 12 one. But I think this is the first time we might have discussed this one team. ASU, Arizona State University, going up against number 20 Kansas State. I think the first time we've broken down an ASU game. Yeah. Kansas State they're coming off a bad loss really to Houston there. The market movement on this one has been interesting because again, full disclosure, we're on ASU plus 8.5 in this one. Circa technically opened at 6. This kind of not immediately, but is now at 8.5. So market has been showing some love for K-State early on. One comment I had on this one, Seth, was another situation of a strength on strength situation. We know Cam Scatteraboo and the rushing offense for ASU, they love to run. They have an almost 7% rush rate over expected. And they're number 17 in the country in EPA per rush. So they like to run schematically and they're good at it. K-State on the flip side, top 10 rushing defense and almost a top 10 D overall by a few other metrics. So I guess if Cam Skattebo is out, which I think is still a question mark again on this one, what's the game script for ASU to pull out the cover for us?
Sam Levitt, baby. He's throwing it all over, which is ironically because there's a Sam Levitt's famous, I think it's a famous furniture store in Arizona. So I don't know if he's got any relation, but I think they got to throw the hell out of this
Get
ball.
that NIL deal. That'd be sick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, our numbers showed Kansas State 9th against the rush, but 65th against the pass. So I think that's the way you go. So I have here no Skattebo, no problem. The only hesitation I have, and again, it's a model play for us, so we've already played this, but the one hesitation I have if I wasn't using a model here is that ASU's MO, like you were saying, is to run the ball. So it looks like the pathway for success here is to throw the ball a lot. Skattebo might not be, in the game. He might be, hurt for this. Can they just flip that switch and throw the ball 6% more than average because they're used to running it so much? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know either. And the one other thing I had written down for this one. So in their game against UCF last week, Cam Skattebo also sat in that one. And so the question was like, what are they going to do for points? They end up putting 35 points on the board. UCF is nothing to write home about in terms of a stout defense, but a couple of interesting nuggets came out of that one. ASU had hardly any explosives whatsoever in this one, but UCF had a 0.0% stuff rate in the run game. Literally nobody was worse in the country last week. So they didn't, like, my point being, K-State being a good defense, particularly rushing defense as well, going in this one. If Cam Skattebo is out, I'd be hard pressed to see that they have that kind of success again against this defense, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely their main driver here, and this is the one probably why the market moved by 2 points. We saw that because of this injury whole thing came out of could he, then couldn't he, and then maybe we'll see. But I'm with you. I mean, this is one where it's a clear game plan on how they can dominate this game, and K-State is not infallible. I mean, we obviously saw them lose to Houston, who's a bottom feeder in the Big 12. You get pressure on Avery Johnson, the Kansas State quarterback, and he's prone to make some mistakes. He's prone to make some interceptions, but that's not really ASU's kind of motto or MO, if you will. So I don't know. I think ASU is going to have to be able to generate some pressure, but I do trust Sam Levitt to get it done. Obviously they're way less efficient without Cam Skattebo in the backfield, but if Levitt can get it done against a questionable K-State team who, I mean, they lost to a Houston team who barely threw for 100 yards last week, and I think they barely did Houston even clip over 100 rushing yards? Here, let me double check real quick. The point being is that Houston had 121 rushing yards, 111 passing yards. I mean, that's not an explosive offense, right?
Yeah.
So there's definitely a game plan here, just a matter of which Wildcats are going to show up.
Yeah, 100%. I think that this is like more of like an offensive line thing. Like you probably just have Skattebo, I'm sure, is very good, but he probably has a really good offensive line.
Oh, baby.
No?
You're not wrong, but this man is a yak freaking machine. Dude.
Okay.
This dude is after contact. He's seeking out contact. He ran once 99 yards backwards to run into a guy to carry him.
You remember how good Peyton Hillis was in the NFL for like a year and a half?
It's that.
Yeah.
He's him, dude, like reincarnated. It's weird. Yeah.
He's legit. But I hope, look, obviously we're on ASU, so I'm hoping we get Skattebo, obviously, but I almost even hope if he's not 100%, like if he can go, like he probably doesn't need to see the ball, just him being on the field is like, okay, they're probably going to try to run a little bit. Like, I think the game plan here is throw. And I think that they've had some games like that. I think Texas State, they were definitely pass happy.
They might. I think they probably will lean into it because nobody else on ASU's in ASU's running back room has more than 50 carries. I think the next leading guy is 47. Skattebo is like 160. So I don't know if it's a trust issue, but they might just lean into Levitt's abilities, see what they can do. So all right. We're flying through these. Dang, let's go though. We got one more good one here. A huge SEC matchup. Let's go and talk about number 6 Tennessee, go Vols, versus number 11, Georgia, go Dogs. Elimination game, no other way to say it for Georgia in this one. I would be shocked, astonished, downright embarrassed if Georgia loses this game and somehow makes it into the playoffs, frankly. So this one, early market love though for Georgia. I don't know if this is like a Nico question mark situation. You know, he's technically questionable going into this one when he got knocked out of that Mississippi State game. This opened at 7, now at 9.5. Again, we make the number 9 there, so we show a little bit of value on Tennessee. But is it mainly that question mark?
Yeah,
with Nico that's keeping us from keeping the trigger from being pulled on this one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're going to see a huge drop off. This thing won't stop at 10 if you're going to get a backup. The interesting thing from this is very similar to the South Carolina matchup. Is I think this is more of a defensive matchup than it is an offensive matchup. Now, again, I say all that. Of course, you need Nico in this game for Tennessee to win this game. But I mean, if you actually look behind the curtain on these numbers, Tennessee is much better defensively than they are offensively. I mean, I think we've been kind of saying that all season. So and we've talked, you guys called it last week. You guys are on that Ole Miss upset, if you want to call it that, to Georgia. I think it ended up closing at 1, but they put a pipe bomb in there, whatever you would say, Kevin. So, I mean, I have here, I mean, just to highlight these defenses, Georgia's 25th and Tennessee is the 8th weighted EPA defenses. I mean, these are top 25 defenses, and Tennessee is a top 10 defense. So, versus these offenses, Georgia 69th weighted EPA on offense, Tennessee 73rd. So to me, it's a defensive matchup. So do you even yes, Nico needs to start if you are Tennessee going to win this game, but I think the number is heavily influenced by Nico not starting, and I'm not sure that that's fully accounted for here. Sure, it may still be value even if he doesn't play. It makes it a lot harder to want to bet.
Well, hold on. If you think there's value now, Josh Heupel already came out and said Nico had a great day of practice today, and he looks great for Saturday. He said, he gave that classic coach thing of, we'll go through the week, we'll see what happens on Wednesday. But he came out in that interview and immediately was addressed about that and said he looked great. So,
yeah, I mean, and on the flip side of this too, maybe it's a slight elephant in the room, but Steve, you mentioned this a lot last week. You kind of hammered the point home about Carson Beck. And him being, the weakest link or whatever. And this has got to be, I mean, Tennessee is still the number 1 or some metrics, the number 2 defense in the country. So do we really expect Carson Beck to turn it around against this team, against this defense?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And then listen, we talk about this. Yeah, you're right. We talked about this last week about Carson Beck having 11 interceptions going into last week, all of them starting with Alabama. I don't know what's been happening, if it's a Carson Beck thing, if it's a defensive scheme where they figured out how they can kind of trick him and how he's seeing ghosts, but the book is out on Beck. And I don't think it's going to get any better this week against, like you mentioned, a great Tennessee defense. And to that point, Kirby Smart in his presser even addressed that. He's like, hey, Tennessee, everyone talks about their offense, but their defense is really, really good. And I think you're seeing that right now where this Georgia coaching staff is like, all right, maybe we need to figure out something else with Beck here. Now, they're not going to bench him, but let's not get crazy here, right? But I wouldn't be surprised seeing some schematic changes to help Beck protect the ball a little bit more, because if he has to go wild, then you're getting an interception out of him. I think that's almost, nothing's a lock here. We don't use the L word on the show, but damn, that feels pretty good.
So I don't know if this is breaking or if someone could find this elsewhere, but using the shout out Unabated on their Player News, bot that they employ, Nico's in the concussion protocol. I had not heard that prior to today. So
he's for sure gonna play. Nico and Tua are cousins.
Oh my God, shut up. Yeah, so he's at practice in concussion protocol. Again, just questionable designation on this one. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, even if Nico plays, and especially if he doesn't, I might just pull the trigger. But I think we don't quantify this, but I love the under basically in every Tennessee game. Frankly,
did your under cash last week?
Sure did.
It was a bit of a sweat. No, what was the number?
It was 61.
Oh,
and they scored like 47 or something. So no, not that much of a sweat. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, we got the Carson Beck issues. We got the potential drop off between Nico and his backup. Or if we don't, like, I don't know necessarily want to write off Georgia's defense here yet.
No,
right?
no. Like I said, Georgia
Sure.
25th weighted EPA, Tennessee 8th. This is like a defensive battle. Like this
Yeah.
is like 10 to
Yeah,
6.
that even with Nico at the helm, that the inconsistencies of that offense has been driving. It's got to been driving that fan base nuts. It's been driving me nuts. I'm not even a Vol, but it's frustrating to watch them sometimes. So,
And I don't want to get caught up in like comparing teams to other teams who haven't played directly, right? But to this point, I'm not. I agree with the under angle. I agree with the defensive battle angle 100%. I think that's what we're going to be in store for. But Tennessee's already taken down a really great defensive team in Alabama. Now, this is a road game, right? So let's not discount, going to Athens and playing in that environment in the night game. But Tennessee's already done this. So I just 9.5 is a lot in a conference game with a team that, quite frankly, if not as good as them, may even be better.
Yeah, I mean, so two things. So I reran the numbers today, so that's why we didn't give it out at open on Sunday, because that 9.5 is a huge bump in EV. Yeah. You can even get 10s now. But actually, it's funny you say that, Steve. I was just going to ask you guys. I mean, we were there. Can you even tell me how Tennessee won that game? We were sitting there for 2.5 hours, and it was just like, yeah, Alabama's going to win, and then like all of a sudden they just didn't, and Tennessee won, and everyone was just like, yay. But it didn't even feel like they were not in control of that game at all, at least offensively.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I couldn't tell you, but yeah, it's one of those things where I think the defense still stood out, especially the back half of this, especially second half, like those
defensively.
Defensively for sure, but offensively again, it was like there was a lot of 3-and-outs, there's a lot of short miscues, all these type of things, and then mixed in with some high explosives and timely plays, basically. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, and turnovers. Milroe had. Exactly. I mean, no, he had the game silly interception, but I think he had another one. I thought that led to points, but yeah, I mean, it was a second half explosion, mostly through the ground with Dylan Sampson.
Yeah.
I was very drunk during that game, so my accounting could be absolutely off. But
okay, fair.
Yeah, I would love to see how Nico tracks week to week. As far as his volatility goes, because can't be great.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously shit the bed against Arkansas. Not even really a good D. So
right. Yeah. All right. Before we move on to landscape, let's get a scoreboard check here. Oh, damn, down by 10 now. Western Michigan to Bowling Green. Although they're driving. 2-minute warning or whatever, 2-minute timeout, whatever the hell they call it in college.
Well, I went high variance. I also took Central Michigan because they were on the board. Quarterback in their first start of his career. They're losing 17-3.
Yeah. High variance indeed.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Can we get a quick shout out too? Street Impala and Cats and Horses. Thank you guys for coming back. Always down to have a good time. Thanks for the comments. Appreciate it. And hey.
Let's go, boys. Yes, appreciate you guys being here. All right. Let's jump out. Those are all the matchups we're going to cover for this week. Let's zoom out now a little bit, talk about the CFB landscape. Seth, you kind of teased something a little bit earlier when we were mentioning the landscape. So kick us off with it, or I guess give us a hot take, because this is technically a slightly different graph than we've had in prior years. So maybe a good lead-in would be just clarify what we're seeing here, and maybe again for the people who might be new, what weighted EPA is, and then go into your point.
So basically these are your x-axis. There is the offensive efficiency and your weighted EPA, and a weighted EPA is basically up-weighting and down-weighting plays that are more correlated with winning, and down-weighting plays that are less correlated with winning. So you're doing that with offense on the x-axis, and on the y-axis, you're doing that with defensive plays. So that quadrant of elite right there in the top right quadrant, that's where you want to be. Those are teams that are really good offensively and defensively and are doing things on a per-play basis that are more correlated with winning. And what do you know? You see teams that are winning a lot of games in that quadrant. The take I was going to say earlier, which is just like next season, I think you try to find your Kent States of the world, which now 2 seasons in a row, and you just literally fade them on every game. Like there's zero reason to believe they can cover. Like there's no bottom on these teams.
I mean, I guess in theory, you're correct. Now, shout out ATS trends. You know, might as well just since you mentioned it.
Okay, yeah.
2-7 ATS.
Kent State.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's this
So
season.
yeah,
This last season, I think they won. They beat Liberty, which is wild.
Let me see. Last season, 3-8-1.
So that's you're just printing money.
Yeah.
So 8-3-1 and 7-2. Right.
Correct.
So what? That's 15-5-1 last 2 years. If you just auto fade Kent State.
Correct.
And I don't think it's like trying to be scientific here. It's trying to identify that, like, look how bad they are offensively and defensively. And then it's like a combination of coaching and culture. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know why, but like, well, I mean, they're new at the FBS, so maybe it has something to do with that. But even Kennesaw State is new this year. Sam Houston new 2 years ago. You know, like the teams that are new are winning something.
Right.
Kent State didn't get the memo.
No, they did not.
And like, don't take the money line. Just take them on the spread. Like, even though they beat Liberty, you only lost 1 unit on the spread. I mean, very different than what we do, but I just something I heard Bud Elliott talk about it. I think it was late last year, maybe it was early this year, but like there's a difference between bad teams and like just dog shit, like the program borderline shouldn't exist teams. And Kent State is for sure in that category.
Should not exist.
Yeah. Well, man, that's a good point, though. I mean, this is something I do want to kind of look out for the rest of this year and kind of see as we get into a few weeks into next year. Yeah, because you look at this graphic. I mean, Kent State is. I mean, yeah, there's the. Is that Temple or Troy? I forget which one is that tall T, but it is Temple. Yeah. Like you got some neighbors in there, but they're effectively on an island. To your point, Seth. Like that's like the inverse of like an Indiana, but you're not. Unfortunately, Indiana is good enough to keep up in these kind of tougher leagues. So there can be that. I mean, look at the Michigan game, right? But Kent State is going to be playing out of this competition upwards every week. So yeah, I like this. I like this segment.
Right. Okay. So one other point on this before we move on here. So the current playoff standings, if you will, again came out just a day ago, right? So I'm just gonna pull this up real quick. Numbers 1 through 12. Oops, here we go. Numbers 1 through 12. Want to rattle? Oh no, does it come out today? I haven't seen today. Did the updated rankings come out today?
Tuesdays, right?
It is, because the first one came out on the 5th, which was a week ago, and I don't know if it came out when we were recording last week or when it exactly happened, because I only see the last week's. All right, I thought I was going to have current week's updated, but all right, fine, nonetheless. But want to get your guys' high level thoughts on those kind of top 10 teams, or even just using the AP rankings here. So Miami, we mentioned them a little bit. They fell out of the top 10 because of that loss to Georgia Tech. Anyone else?
Can we have a moment of silence before we move on from Miami? I mean, not only did they lose to the same team twice as a ranked opponent, but they lost to the same team on a fumble as the last play of the game, right? Like running back last year, quarterback Cam Moore this year. I mean, she's into cats on the horses, point. Georgia Tech has really surprised me this year. I mean, it wasn't on my bingo card. I mean, I again, full transparency, I came on this show last week and I thought Miami was going to absolutely beat them down. They didn't do it. But man, that is tough.
Yeah. I mean, these playoff rankings are literally meaningless, like, because they don't even follow their own rules. Like, they don't have like BYU number 4, which is like what will happen if BYU wins the Big 12. So it just literally means it's meaningless. So I don't know. I don't really pay too much attention to it. This is the updated actual power ranking from our data. The one thing I want to point out, we called this out last week. I implore, there's 9 people in here, whatever, 100 people are going to watch this. When it comes to playoff time, please do not forget this Indiana Michigan game. We called it exactly right. On paper, Indiana has all the stats that Texas had. Who else did work against Minnesota? For sure. I just remember Texas, but yet they couldn't pull away and be that dominant win, even though they're the number 1 passing team. They all these, really impressive metrics. They do not have the same level of talented roster. They are punching up. I'm not saying Indiana's not good. I'm not saying they can't go on and do big things, but this is a different type of caliber team. And when you get to the playoff and Indiana goes plays Texas or Alabama or something like this, like just put it as a really important data point, because I cannot stress enough how important the combination of those really good stats plus top tier talent and roster, and Indiana is not there yet. Maybe next year they'll get there.
Yeah.
But currently that roster, you saw how much trouble they had against a Michigan team that is a top tier roster that has shit statistics.
Yeah. And this is, and we don't have to look that far back. This is not like a N of one situation either. There's another historical situation, in my opinion. A couple years ago, TCU.
Oh yeah, TCU,
when they made it to the playoffs.
Cincinnati before that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then we saw, and then they just got absolutely dog walked by a
But the problem is Indiana is they look so much more dominant than those teams, at least from my perspective. And they're doing it in the Big Ten.
Right. Sure. Now that's a G5 school.
Yeah. So Cincinnati's beating up on the AAC teams, but this is like, oh, they're in the Big Ten. And then they finally played one of the big dogs in the Big Ten. And it wasn't just so easy. And you saw what Texas could do with the pretty much similar statistics. They could do whatever they wanted, however they wanted. So it's a really important data point in my mind for betting. Obviously, we'll bet with the model, but I won't be surprised come playoff time. You see us like betting against Indiana. You guys are going to think we're crazy. I'm telling you, that's a huge, huge data point.
Yep. All right. Sounds good. Good zoom out discussion here. Let's move on to our next segment here. We got off the numbers. Oh, here we go. How many points is a talent difference between Indiana and say OC worth roughly?
I can tell you. Just give me a minute. If you go on, Kevin, I'll get the number and I can bring it back.
Okay. All right. We'll come back to Seth on that point, but yeah, let's jump ahead real quick to off the numbers. Again, this is just kind of our individual picks for college football, and we're just tracking who is good at this and who's not good at this. Basically, using data as maybe the foundation, you may be using the model as kind of a piece of the puzzle, etc. But we're kind of somewhat shooting from the hip a little bit and just kind of trying to pick the best games. And we're betting money on these as well. So we're not just giving you the plays. So I guess I'll just kick it off real quick. I am on Notre Dame this week. Notre Dame minus 23. And it's not overly complicated. Our model does show some value on Notre Dame. I think like almost just about 2%. I think we make the number 25 and about 2% value at 23. So not quite a full model play for us. So I won't say I'm cheating, but I'm leaning into the model's prediction a little more.
Did you bet a 23 or 22.5?
I bet a 23.
Okay.
Yeah.
At 22.5, it's a play. It'll be sent out later tonight.
Yeah.
I reran the numbers. I get it. Use the data. It's fair play.
Yeah. So I mean,
22.5, it meets the criteria.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. So basically the thought process with this one is they really, since that Northern Illinois loss, they've looked like Notre Dame, frankly. Yeah. They have really been finding their stride. Okay, last four, I mean, they've been winning by like 30 and 40 points. This is some crazy shit. I just want to run through this real quick.
I know.
So since that loss to NIU, they've won by 59. They've won by 25. They've won by 7. Okay, they've won by 42, 18, 37, 49. They are out to make a point. They're out to prove a point. This is one of the top defenses in the land still. Virginia is just not a good. It's just not a good team. I mean, they should be able to do. Notre Dame should be able to do what it wants, offensively speaking, as well. Virginia ranks is one of the lower class of defensive teams as well. So, I think they're going to run it up. I think 23 is easy money, baby. So Notre Dame minus 23. Steve, what you got?
Yeah, I am on Clemson minus 10. For everything we just talked about earlier, the Pitt struggles, the quarterback play, Holstein maybe being in, maybe being out, Yarnell having to play in, and Clemson just absolutely needing to dominate everybody they play for the rest of the year for their CFP lives, right? I mean,